Let's get started. So I first have to start with disappointing you because the slide is not right. The slide is not right. We have an upgrade. So Jeremy is here instead of Dr. Shafiq Raab, and Jeremy is actually the person who does a lot of the work. And when we went through the presentation, you're the one who actually made the slides, right? The slides that show the architecture.
Pretty much. I know a lot of people wanted to come see Elvis, but I'm not too shabby. So we'll have a good time.
Yeah. On the other hand, I'm Jörg Schwartz, Director for Solution and Strategy for Interoperability at Infor. A lot of people know the Cloverleaf product, and we'll talk about Cloverleaf in the cloud and how we support with our product the migration from on-premise to on-cloud service for Tufts Medicine. So nowadays, and Jeremy can talk about this for hours, how important it is that a healthcare organization moves their mission-critical applications into the cloud. Healthcare needs secure, dependable, scalable interoperability. You have all the numbers. How many applications do you have at Tufts Medical?
The entire system, our portfolio is a little over 800 applications today. We're moving Epic and 40 co-travelers to AWS actually April 1st.
So what does Cloverleaf do? Cloverleaf actually integrates all of these applications. We have a lot of customers with hundreds of applications. How do you make all these applications exchange data? You use an interoperability platform like Cloverleaf, and Cloverleaf is the leading interoperability platform in the United States to make that work. We'll talk to you today about how we do that in the cloud. I'll talk a little bit about Cloverleaf interoperability. I talk about Cloverleaf and AWS. We'll talk about some use cases that are real world. And then Jeremy will talk specifically about the architecture that they implemented at Tufts Medicine. So first, let's be discussing very generically what interoperability in healthcare means nowadays. The three boxes were supposed to be three pillars. So there's three major pillars in a hospital system. One is the clinical systems, which is the EMR system or the EMRs. How many EMRs do you have in Tufts Medicine?
6 within the organizations, and then there are upwards of 60 in the community.
Yeah, and we have names like Epic, Cerner, Meditech, eClinicalWorks, the whole variety of different systems. So a lot of people think there might be only one EMR, one EHR, but oftentimes healthcare systems have a whole variety of EHRs, and you need to get all the data of these EHRs integrated. The second pillar here is the ERP pillar, the Enterprise Resource Planning, and there are vendors like Infor, Oracle, Workday, all of them have booth here, and a lot of vendors use this. You're using Infor.
Our inside joke is we have 3 of everything.
Yeah,
I guarantee you we've got it all.
That's right, and that's not unusual. And then the third pillar in our overview is imaging. Vendors like GE Healthcare, which is a large customer of ours, Siemens, Agfa, and many more that integrate the medical images. And then the fourth pillar is CRM systems like Salesforce, and Jeremy told me I should have added some APIs, and that's true because there's a lot of APIs nowadays.
Yeah, that especially with the Cures Act, you've gone from 800 applications that you have to worry about and manage to infinite, because every single patient that visits these booths that has a cool app, you're going to have to allow them to connect to you.
So this is what Cloverleaf does. We bring all of these applications together. We make it possible that all of these applications can exchange data, that you can actually leverage all these applications because you don't have to re-enter data from one application into another. Cloverleaf does this with high reliability and high scalability, and we've been doing this in the cloud. One use case that we wanted to discuss here is Penn Highlands. We actually prepared this for last year's SIMS that was canceled. Penn Highlands is a customer that uses Infor Cloud Suite, and they also use Cloverleaf to bring all the clinical data, the imaging data together, and they migrated their entire operations into the cloud last year already. But there's multiple models with which you can migrate your operations into the cloud. For example, you can operate it yourself, or you can use service. We at Infor invested a lot of money into and a lot of effort into really customizing our products to run optimally in the cloud. We utilize a lot of AWS cloud services to give customers that use our products in the cloud the optimal scalability, the optimal exposure to services. We call it the Infor operating platform, Infor OS. And it allows our customers to utilize services. When we had the discussion, you gave an example how you're using AWS to provide some new services during the pandemic, right?
Yeah, I think it's very important to show that even though a lot of these apps that we're moving and lifting and shifting are monolithic and basically you're just using infrastructure as a service, to be able to have a platform on top of it and sit on native AWS services and interject them into the actual non-modern workflows is tremendous. We've got a omni-channel contact center that uses Amazon's Connect. We've got a chatbot that's sitting on top of Epic, and that is also using all sorts of native Amazon AWS services like Pinpoint, Connect, Lambda, Lex. My chief of development sent me like 2 pages worth, but the important piece is that you're actually in the cloud and you have the availability of all those cloud services. You're not just moving from one data center to another, you're actually modernizing and cloudifying these things.
An important part is if any of these applications need clinical data, that clinical data is provided through Cloverleaf. If they generate data, we bring that data to where it needs to be, and with the modern APIs, we can orchestrate very flexible workflows. So it's provides a lot of flexibility nowadays with those API orchestrated workflows.
Absolutely, the orchestration is so important. Not only that, the security and the management of them, especially when you're going to have hundreds, if not thousands of connections coming in at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. So AWS provides a secure environment, but you have to replace the VPNs. You have to make sure that all these applications are transmitting data in a secure way, and Cloverleaf is the tool of choice for many of these tasks. But Cloverleaf wouldn't be a fully SaaS service if it's not delivered by our Cloud Ops team. Our Cloud Ops team has developed best-in-class services around providing Cloverleaf as a service in the cloud to allow really maximum scalability, maximum availability. For example, a rolling update. Whenever there's a new version, there's a rolling update into new versions. You don't have to worry about it, because we know that if Cloverleaf were to be down, a lot of bad things would happen in the hospital.
The number one thing of causing bad things is if your interface engine is out.
Yeah, the
Cloverleaf doesn't go out.
The interface engine can't be out. Yeah, absolutely. And so when you move into the cloud, obviously you want to take advantage of all the features that are available and of the expertise that our Cloud Ops team has to make sure that there's the highest possible availability.
And you can't say enough about that expertise. I mean, one of the biggest challenges in moving into the cloud and getting those questions of, is it secure? How could you go into a public cloud? Is adopting a zero trust framework. And that zero trust framework in our traditional healthcare IT sense becomes very cumbersome. So the number one thing, our on-prem Cloverleaf folks were like, there's no way, we can't do this. We're gonna have all sorts of policies, all sorts of communication issues. These guys swooped in with a team that was so advanced in AWS, they actually stood up the environment and our most massive interface in less than a day. So the whole environment was up and running, and one of our biggest interfaces code was completely migrated over. And that no issues whatsoever. It was phenomenal.
You are a mythbuster. Because a lot of people say that cloud migration takes a long time, and that's another myth that you just busted.
Yep.
All right, so let's give you the platform to talk a little bit more about the architecture that you implemented when you moved from on-premise to cloud services.
Sure, so I shouldn't even be here. We've got several DR tests going on. We have our Big Bang Go Live happening April 1st, and Dr. Shafiq Rob, our fearless leader, sends his apologies, but thanks for having us, because this is very important and transformational work that we're doing here. And I don't use that term lightly. I mean, you see digital transformation anywhere, but this project in general has just brought us together across cultural lines, across technical lines, and just was one big puzzle to bring together. We started our journey probably about 5 years ago now to pick the right partners. Epic is the center of our universe for many, many years, so it's sort of our mothership, and we worked closely with their cloud team to understand, what partners they were looking at in the public cloud space, reassuring them that we had the talent and the engineer and the wherewithal to actually pull this off, because they want you to be successful. And then AWS came along. We picked them for many reasons I can explain after this. And then when we saw Infor was actually in AWS, I said, oh my God, everything, the stars are aligning. I've been a Cloverleaf customer since 4 acquisitions ago. Phenomenal, phenomenal product. So even in that term, when we build this, what we call collaboratory, or some people call a cloud center of excellence, we bring our vendors in and our partners, while Infor and their product was way far ahead than anybody else in this industry, and insofar as they're full SaaS in cloud, there were things that they didn't have customers to test this stuff on. We came in and we wanted to make sure that we're on the same network, so we got private link. We want to make sure that our high availability and business continuity plans are similar. We're still working on that, because they obviously have a whole infrastructure to change. And notice I don't use disaster recovery. That's out of our vocabulary now. But we had the fortune to join our CEO here at Tufts Medicine, Mr. Mike Dandorf. And a lot of people ask, well, why do you have to digitally transform? Why now? And he put it simply, we have 4 million reasons why. These 4 million lives that we cover that come to us at their most vulnerable. And then we've got another 20,000 reasons why internally that have to rely on these systems to take care of these most vulnerable people at this time in their lives. And that really puts it into perspective, and it aligned with the guiding principles of Dr. Rob and myself, that we want to create a frictionless experience that gives you access to all the information you need for a particular scenario, and that you can access it in the right format, at the right time, no matter where you are, identically the same way, and securely. So the whole project was able to come and be established. I'm actually going to stay on that slide for a second, because I was skipped. To set the scene for what our environment was like, we got 4 entirely separate organizations, 3 hospitals, a whole entire home health organization, all independent of each other, their own applications, their own domains. We had a little patchwork here and there of getting things together. 800 applications, like I said, 3 of everything, 3 versions of each of those, 6 individual EMRs within the hospitals alone, so the hospital EMRs. And no exaggeration, 109 patient portals. So that was a pretty dire situation. 18,000 users, 1,000 beds throughout the system. That's about the size of our application, our Epic implementation. Dr. Rob and I and a couple other core team members, we're pioneers. We're on the hype curve all the time, from whether it was fire to data sharing to bulk. All along the way, Infor has done some really cool stuff with us. And we need that hype. Right now, cloud and getting us out of those physical data centers in the 90s of healthcare technology into the cloud, that's our next hype. We went into this a little bit naive, that cloud is going to solve everything, all the security and everything is taken care of for us. We learned a lot of hard lessons through that. I think it's generous saying that our industry is in the 90s. The most shocking component of it was 60% of our application library, from the mom and pop vendors to, I won't name names, but massive vendors here, do not have the basic capabilities to encrypt your traffic in transit. Everybody points to, nobody's asked for this before, and you're in your own walls of your hospital anyway. That doesn't cut it for the cloud. Not to mention, our number one security risks are internal actors, and cybersecurity is on top of mind for everybody. So it was kind of mind-blowing to see that 60% of these companies just don't have that capability. So then we say, okay, we're going to switch to VPN. Well, as you heard earlier, VPN takes 100 gigabyte pristine pipe, the fastest, most peered, whatever you want to tweak your VPN, you're going to get 2 gigs. You're not going to get more than 2 gigs out of it. I don't care if you spend $1 billion. It's not going to happen. It just doesn't work. And everything's tied to IPs. It's just not modern. So when I say we're doing a transformation and we're changing minds and culture, we're changing our people from understanding, oh, it's just a VPN, to why a VPN isn't the ideal solution in a cloud environment, to our doctors and our nurses and our patients saying, hey, this thing's available to me everywhere, and you know what? If I want to do a free clinic this weekend and I all of a sudden got 2,000 new patients in the door, I'm not going to worry that the system's not going to be able to handle it, or get a call from our CIO that we ran out of space. It's just impossible. Not only is it turnable, it's all automated. Yep, the next
little
one.
plug here, if you want to learn more about Cloverleaf Secure Courier and how you can replace VPNs, visit us at the booth that is right behind the AWS booth, 1124, the Infor booth, and we'll talk about replacing VPNs.
Another fantastic product.
Absolutely.
Simple one too. And then finally, I just wrap up with, we're obviously very fortunate to be working with a leadership team where we all know our true north. So people understand why we're undergoing a digital transformation. They know what it means and why it's now. We're not talking about just Epic, right? This is a foundational move. It's not like sexy to go build servers out in AWS. The cool part's going to be when we actually get all these things functioning together and interoperating and communicating with each other and feeding other lines of data that feed right back into the workflows of our clinicians, that actually transform the level of care we're giving, actually transform how our patients interact with us. We flip the script multiple times. On the one side, we say, okay, if you want to do business with us, you now have to accommodate our requirements. Not the other way around. I'm not giving you $20 million to tell me how to run my data center. And on the other side, from the patient's perspective, our transformation is making this fundamentally different. So I call a specialist because I've got a scary growth on my kidney. I don't want to wait around 6 weeks for the one appointment that the doctor happens to have. The way Tufts Medicine is changing this is the patient calls, hey, I've got availability Tuesday. This thing is scaring the hell out of me. Please get me in. Yes, ma'am. We can have you see Dr. Lee at 2 o'clock. It might seem a stretch that going from Infor and Epic and everything in the cloud to actually accommodating that patient, but that's where the whole journey of transformation happens, and we are doing a cultural change, and we are doing a mentality change, and we're freeing up people to do innovative work. We're bringing them together at the same time, and we're taking them out of watching a data center and making sure storage isn't running out to actually saving lives and actually changing the way the care is delivered out there. And we all believe it. You ask anybody in this institution, they're all going to tell you the same thing, that our job is to save lives.
Everybody's talking about the digital front door. You actually are doing it.
Oh, absolutely. That's one thing Dr. Rob's great at. He's got some new words for this stuff because digital front door is so pre-COVID. Now everybody's talking about it. So, care where you are when you need it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much.